Thanks again for being here. We've been very fortunate every year at the South Wireless Summit to have a regulatory panel. We started out with one person and two people, and the last 3 or 4 years we've had three great companies representing the regulatory industry for our wireless industry to talk about what's going on. With the exciting news of last week, I'm sure everybody in the room wants to hear what they have to say. I want to briefly introduce who's on the panel. On this side, this would be here, all right. Marvin Wester, the principal for ECA. Wu Lim, the NEPA division lead for Terracon, and Doug Buckner, vice president for Tri-Lead. Fred Tiemann was supposed to be here and moderate this, but he got foot surgery, instead of impersonating Daniel Day-Lewis, he had me fill in, so he's home recovering, so you know Craig, so you know. Thank you all, and we'll turn it over to the regulatory panel.
Hello everyone. I'm really excited about this panel, more so than almost any panel we've done before. And I know you're thinking, well, that's shocking. Marvin's excited about regulatory always, and I am. I do love it. But we have some really good news. So last Thursday on 3/22, the Commission voted 3-2 to amend its rules for environmental and historic preservation. And so the changes, if they're codified the way that they're presented in our report and order, would drastically, in my opinion, cut down on the timeline and the financial burden of building and construction. So we're going to each discuss one of 3 topics. Small cell deregulation, which I'll cover. We will cover the provision for a true tribal shot clock, as well as the elimination of tribal review fees. And then Doug is going to cover streamlined filing for environmental documents. From the beginning of small cell deployment up to the present, it's my opinion that the evidence is clear that the industry has spent an enormous amount of time and money to analyze tens of thousands of small cells that have very little potential to impact the environment or preservation. For ECA and its customers, over the many thousands of small cells that we've evaluated, I can't, or I'm not aware of an instance where a tribal nation identified a historic property that would be directly impacted by the action, despite paying millions of dollars for tribe fees. Additionally, for SHPO concerns, where we have run into no adverse effects or just SHPO concerns in general, these facilities have been limited to the larger facilities that are not within the definition of small cells that are to be removed from NEPA and NHP and regulation. A second category is replacement of compatible or contributing architectural light poles within very close proximity to historic districts. Still, that is a relatively small number. So how does the deregulation work? The FCC will basically amend its rules to clarify that the deployment of small wireless facilities by private entities under a geographic area license don't constitute a major federal undertaking within the meaning of the National Historic Preservation Act, nor a major federal action under NEPA. I think it's an important distinction is that the way that the report and order is written is that small wireless facilities aren't simply excluded. They simply just aren't subject to the statutes anymore if this goes forward. So it's important, I think this will touch everyone in this room, because the applicants and their vendors will need to plan, to site, and to design, and to construct facilities that avoid the regulatory burden. So that gets you, that's RF design, that's site acquisition, that's A&E firms, that is construction, and it's also, if you manufacture and distribute equipment, there are volumetric limits. So it really pertains to us all. So how do we define a small cell that is to be no longer subject to NHPA? First, you have to avoid ASR filings. Facilities requiring an ASR filing will continue to be considered a major federal action and federal undertaking. Not advancing yet. There we go. So the height can be no taller than 50 feet, and that includes the antenna, or no taller than 10% over existing or adjacent structures in the area. And additionally, on a co-location, the co-located facilities can't increase the height of the existing structure by more than 10%. The volume of each antenna must be, or antenna enclosure, must be less than 3 cubic feet in volume. The equipment can be no larger than necessary to operate the facility, whatever that means. So there's really no real limit there. Facilities must be RF compliant. And the first question I typically get when I discuss this with someone is, when does this take effect? Well, the vote was on 3/22. If there's hustle and the proposed rules or the final rules go into the Federal Register, let's say by 4/22, then maybe by late May, maybe even the third week of May, we would have a 30-minute comment period that had run concurrent with that published in the Federal Register and have the new rule become effective, which would be convenient for the WIA show. That may be a little aggressive, but we may be looking more like midsummer to late summer. We'll just have to see. Here, I have 2 articles that every time the rules change, I write a one-page, 550 words or less. It's on one page, and you read it 3 to 5 minutes, and try to capture as much of the nuance of the rule in as small a space as possible. So these are on our website. If you want them, I have a few more copies up here. You can see me after the show or after the presentation, and I'll get you one. That will hand over to Boo.
Like Marva mentioned, I'll be giving a high-level overview of how the FCC proposes to streamline the NHPA and nuclear review process for macro sites. Specifically, the FCC has proposed a few changes to the existing Section 106 travel review process, which can be broken down into 3 main topics. The first one is the revised timelines. The FCC will be imposing a new shot clock on tribes. So the original 2005 declaratory ruling provided for a 60-day process for resolving cases where a tribe is unresponsive. So under the proposed ruling, it will revise the declaratory ruling and will shorten the shot clock from 60 days to a total of 45 days. Currently, there is no regulatory shot clock for tribes to continue to indicate interest on a project. So to remedy that, the FCC will be removing the auto-reply languages that are currently enabled within the TCNS system. I'm sure consultants in the room know exactly what I'm talking about. And then it'll kind of disable for them auto-replying with interest without providing site-specific reasoning to become a consulting party. So once this proposed ruling goes into effect, tribes will have to indicate that historic property may be affected and has become a consulting party to not have to adhere to the shot clock. So the second major change is the FCC has come up with a standardized information packet to provide to all consulting tribes for review. So once the ruling goes into effect, applicants will have to provide the 620 form for new builds and the 621 form for co-locations to the consulting tribes. And the FCC has deemed that this is sufficient to kick off the tribal review process. Currently, it's very commonplace for tribes to request additional information beyond the 620 and 621 form, such as the SHPO concurrence letter, Fish and Wildlife concurrence letter, ethnographic study, which can be very costly, and grading plans, engineering plans, etc. But under the proposed ruling, applicants are no longer required to respond to travel requests in excess of what the MPA requires to be included in the 620 and 621 form. So once again, the only exception would be if the tribe has indicated that a specific historic property may be affected and has become a consulting party. So the last and most contentious topic of all has been the proposed elimination of upfront tribal fees, which I'm sure a lot of people in this room are excited about. The proposed ruling states that wireless firms have no legal obligation to pay upfront fees when providing tribal nations and Native Hawaiian organizations with an opportunity to comment on proposed facility deployments. So when TCNS was first launched in 2004, tribes generally did not request upfront fees to review these TCNS inquiries, but however, as TCNS has progressed in the last almost 15 years, it's been very common practice for tribes to request all these upfront fees. Actually, Marvin spoke on this topic 2 years ago in this panel, and the general trend has been twofold, with continued expansion of tribal geographic claims, coupled with increased review fees within those geographic areas of interest. And I just wanted to close it off by saying that it'll be very interesting to see how the new adopted ruling will actually be implemented into practice, and its effects on project timelines and government-to-government relationships. As all three of us, as environmental consultants, we're always at the forefront of all these big changes, and we're the lucky ones to get to test the waters, all of these changes. And now Doug will be covering the last changes in the proposed rule.
Great, thank you, Lou. So it only gets better, if you can believe that. So in addition to streamlining the Section 106 process and the tribal consultation that Lou just discussed, the second report order looks to also streamline the environmental review process. The two actions taken by the FCC are as follows. Adopted changes to the FCC NEPA rules on facilities proposed in floodplains, and establish timeframes for the FCC to review and process environmental assessments. So floodplains. Under current FCC NEPA rules, the applicant must file an EA solely due to the proposed facility being located within a floodplain. Under the new rule, environmental assessment will no longer be required solely due to the proposed facility being located in the floodplain, as long as the following condition is met. Facility, including all associated equipment, will be constructed at least 1 foot above base flood elevation. The FCC revised the rule read as follows, which previously read facilities to be located in floodplains. That's where it stopped. But it goes on to say if the facility will not be constructed at least 1 foot above base flood elevation of floodplains. So this revision all but eliminates the need to file an EA of facilities located within the floodplain, which to date has accounted for a clear majority of the EAs filed with the FCC, and therefore will also alleviate a large portion of the review and processing burden experienced by the FCC. So some of the timeframes, the FCC would like to tell you that they regularly review and process EAs within 45 days. Recent statistics have shown that the FCC currently completes review and processing for approximately 75% of their EAs within 60 days, with most of the remainder completed within 90 days. The FCC concluded that providing applicants with greater time certainty will benefit both applicants and the public, and has committed to the following timeframes for review and processing of EAs. So the 60-day, this is your best case scenario. It's within 60 days, so it can't come inside that. Assuming the EA is complete and would support FONSI without requiring additional information, the FCC shall notify the applicant, and that's within a 20-day review period, barring filing of an informal complaint or a petition to deny. The FCC will issue a FONSI, which is a finding of no significant impact, within 60 days of the date of initial notice. This is the publication of public notice or the posting on the FCC website. The 60 to 90-day scenario, there's kind of two scenarios here. If the EA is determined to be missing information, the FCC will notify the applicant of the deficiency within 30 days after the EA is placed on notice. The additional period of up to 10 days beyond the initial 20-day review period will give the FCC an opportunity to prepare a request for more information. So you're looking at the 60-day scenarios where the missing information is determined to not affect the public's ability to comment on the environmental impacts. The application will not again be placed on notice, and the FCC will issue a FONSI 30 days after the information is provided, requested information is provided, or 60 days after initial notice, whichever is later. The 90-day scenario, where the missing information may affect the public's ability to comment on significant environmental impacts, the application will again be placed on notice with the information is received. Once the information is received, and a new 60-day review period will begin. The last option here is if an informal complaint or petition to deny is received against the application, the FCC allows the applicant as well as the opportunity to respond, and the petitioner or objector the opportunity to reply. In such cases, the FCC will endeavor to resolve the contested proceeding within 90 days after the pleading cycle is completed, or the FCC otherwise has received the information from the applicant. So those are all very exciting matters. The FCC's process was a little bit of unknown. There was no shot clock, so it does hold us to some time frames now. I guess in conclusion here for our panel, I think it goes without saying that this new framework will promote as well as expedite deployment of the facilities needed to bring advanced technologies and services to consumers. And with that, we'll open the floor for any questions. Yes, Emily?
You mentioned the TCMS auto reply. Can you kind of opine for the non-consultants in the room what the TCMS auto reply meant for existing project timelines and what the elimination of the auto reply means?
So the way that the TCNS system works, if the way it's programmed right now is, as soon as we register a site with the TCNS registration, I'm sure all of us can agree that almost automatically we get replies from consulting tribes saying, they want to get paid, they want to review this, provided as soon as possible. And that also, the way the website is programmed, anytime they provide an auto reply indicating interest in that specific project, it also meant that we can't refer them through the TCNS website. So the declaratory ruling from the 2005 declaratory ruling didn't really apply for them. We could do the same system offline and then provide the commission with all the different times we contacted the tribe and they've been unresponsive and try to kind them out that way. But it was definitely a burden on definitely the consultants, the applicants, and the commission to just try to get responses from them, and if they end up being non-responsive, it just drags out the process even longer.
You all follow so closely, I'm kind of curious what most pleasantly surprised you about what came out? Did you expect to be as good? What was your biggest sort of disappointment, things you would have liked to have seen that helped you day to day that weren't even defined in order?
Well, I would say that the most positive thing for my company and for my customers was, well, really twofold, but and for me, the shot clock, because we spent fruitless days calling and begging and emailing and texting and Facebook messaging drives to try to get them to give us some sort of response with the customers, not upset, but frustrated with our inability to move that process along with the tribes. And quite frankly, with small cells, I would say that the push overwhelmed the tribes, and the push from the customer was beginning to just strictly out of volume and the need to move things. I feel like the relationships between the consultants and the tribe was getting stressed, where when the volume was lower, it was easier to have that be a less stressful situation. And of course, the review fees on the customers love very much, because it had gotten out of hand. I've remarked before that, if I had to do the review that we were asking them to review within my shop, that would be a $300 scope. And to me, that seems reasonable as for the applicants to pay. The commission went another way with it, and so now it is what it is. But I feel like we almost had a lose situation where just no one, everyone wanted to go higher until the system was broken.
Would you like to see in there that you can see?
Yeah, I was expecting Twilight Towers to actually be addressed before these particular entities, but I think the small cell complete exclusion was a little bit of a surprise for me. I didn't expect that. As far as the tribal clarification on that, it's an excessive administrative burden on us, and as far as environmental as well. We as a company tried to throw over $8 million worth of tribal fee checks in 2017 alone. So, in addition with the shot clock and the elimination of the floodplain EA, it's going to allow for those large areas to now be more accessible for towers without the burden. So I think that's good for everybody. Yes, sir.
Any indication as to what happens in sites that are in process and other traditions that you use? Do you recommend that we wait until we go into how do you see that transition?
I think that might be the $1 million question. I think we got to get to the first part where it's effective. There's a very distinct possibility that there could be some holes in the courts. So we'll see if there's any stays on this. I believe anything, we might be able to speak more to this with our tribal expertise, but I believe anything that was started in our system prior to the effective date will probably carry its course. As far as NEPA, there's no shelf life on the NEPA, so if you want to hold on to the NEPA until the ruling comes out, if you're in a floodplain, you could probably be able to do that.
Yeah, my assumption would be any TCMS registrations that were registered within the system prior to the ruling goes into effect will still be grandfathered in with the original ruling.
Now, I would say that the response from the customer base has been continued like nothing happened until the vote, and now we have the vote, and we still have continued as normal until we know more. And I think a lot of that decision is if you've got 2019 sites, then maybe you have time to wait. If you've got third and fourth quarter 2018 sites, you may want to just keep on going to make sure you stay on track.
A lot of our conversations yesterday, a lot of people were talking about this and how it affects everything. And I think the general consensus was business as usual, because a lot of people are thinking that there's going to be some kickbacks coming, questions, problems, and it may not be answered right away. So, yeah,
Do you
it's just
expect
point.
the tribes to be kicking back on this? What is
Absolutely.
on that? Yeah. I imagine we're on to quite a bit of a.
I'm sure they're minding their defense now.
I like to say you don't watch $100 million walk out the door.
Yes, sir.
I'm concerned about when this does kick in, that we're going to get kickback from the tribes. Does the shot clock allow us to go to the shot clock, end the shot clock, and just move on, make like whatever the NHPA proposed? Where if they don't apply at all, we're done.
Yeah, the way it's written, they need to make a valid, I guess, argument that there is a certain historic property that may be affected that we really can. And, I mean, that would kind of remove the shot clock, but if there's no response whatsoever, then you can have it on. Yeah. But they need to make an argument as to why they would become a consulting party.
But then that would be additional consultation, I would just see that.
Correct, yes.
The order is explicit in that if the tribe refuses to respond without a review fee, that is taken as a non-response. And to me, the alternatives are identify your interests and identify a historic property that may potentially be affected. And then we should have never had to get approval from a consulting party to move forward with a federal action anyway. NEPA and HPA only require the federal agency to consider the consequences of the action. So once the historic property is identified, then at that point, you have really sent the tribe to Section 106, and if you make Swiss cheese out of the site in terms of archaeology and you found nothing, from there, then maybe it's nearby, or maybe you do further delineation, that type of thing. But I think once a historic property is identified, then you're into typical consulting on a federal project like larger projects.
Yes, sir.
What was specifically the deciding force that pushed the FCC into making these changes?
5G.
So with that said, I mean, as a whole, everyone's pushing for that, right? But is there one group that's really pushing that and seeing it through from beginning to end to make it happen?
WA is a strong advocate, obviously, for that, and the majority of your carriers were heavily involved.
But just to give a sense of everything, at the FCC open meeting, March 22nd, Commissioner Rosenworcel said that there was no tribe that gave any approval of this ruling coming out. So that kind of gives you the attitude of the other side.
Thank you for your time.
We'll start back up in about 2 minutes.